I'm Gareth Green, and in this video we're going to have a little bit of a think about the alto clef. Well, the alto clef, sometimes called the C clef, well, it's something that most people probably never have to worry about. I mean, if you play the guitar or you play the piano or something, or the flute or the violin, well, are you ever going to need to worry about the alto clef? Well, if you are a viola player, you will spend almost your entire musical life working in the alto clef. If you play first trombone in the orchestra, you might well be playing a lot of music in the alto clef. So some people do actually deal in the alto clef for a living. Or you may be a composer and find yourself having to write for one of these instruments using an alto clef. And a number of composers have said to me over the years, oh dear, I don't like these C clefs and alto clefs and things. I'm not going to write for anything that's got one of those. Well, actually, it's not too difficult to conquer. So I'm going to encourage you just to make friends with the alto clef, not to have to get brilliantly fluent in reading the alto clef, but just to recognize for what it is, how it works, and have a very quick way of working out what the notes are. So if you want to compose for an instrument using the alto clef, you're not fazed by that. Maybe you're going to accompany a viola player and suddenly you're looking at this viola music in the alto clef thinking, which notes is this viola player playing? Well, it's kind of quite useful just to have an inkling about it. The first thing to say about it is that the alto clef can be written in one of two ways. Well, that's confusing, isn't it? So it might be written like this. So what you've got there are those sort of two parallel lines, and then this sort of K-shaped thing. And you'll notice that what's happening here is we've got those two parallel lines, but the upper part and the lower part of this sort of K thing are around this note. So this one is above that note, and this one is below that note. Because what it's trying to focus is this middle line, and it's telling us that the note on that middle line is middle C. So you can do it with the two lines and the sort of K thing, or you can do it with the two lines and the sort of slightly decorated 3 thing that follows. Just notice how this goes. You kind of do this upper thing, and then you have this bar in the middle like that before you do the lower thing. And that's to show us that where this bar comes, that is the note middle C. Now, if you don't play the viola or the first trombone in the orchestra, you're not really going to have to worry about being fluent in reading this clef. But one thing to think about is just know that the clef is called the C clef, and the middle of this clef is telling you that this note is middle C. So as long as you know that that's middle C, you can kind of work everything out from there. One thing that people get wrong in the alto clef is they often write in the wrong octave, because when you look at this note, well, if that were in the treble clef, it would be B, like 7 notes above middle C, wouldn't it? So we tend to sort of look at this note that's printed there and think, oh, well, if that's C, it must be that C kind of 1 above the B that it would have been in the treble clef. But actually, it's this C that's a 7th below what looks like B in the treble clef. So one thing to watch out for is that you're in the right octave. You know, in the treble clef, middle C is down here, isn't it, on a ledger line below the clef. In the bass clef, middle C is up here on a ledger line above the bass clef. But in the alto clef, it's bang in the middle of the stave. This is why viola players use the clef, because it suits the range of their instrument, and it means that most of the notes that they play kind of fit onto the stave and just go out to the extremes a little bit. But if they try to play music in the treble clef or the bass clef, they'd be constantly on ledger lines, and that would make it a bit of a headache to play. So that's why we have the alto clef that's used for them. However, as I said, this note looks like B in the treble clef, but it's C in the alto clef. Now, that's only 1 note away, even though, as I've explained, it's actually 7 notes away. But one way of thinking about it is you can think, well, actually, if I read these notes in the treble clef and I go up 1 and then down an octave, I've got it. So what am I on about? Well, if I look at this note, that is middle C in the alto clef, is this note, isn't it? So we can kind of immediately see, oh yeah, that's that note in the middle of the clef, so it must be middle C. But it looks like B in the treble clef, doesn't it? It looks like B. So if you go up one, you get C. Well, go up one and then think down an octave. So if you can read the treble clef really well, which a lot of people can, you can very quickly say B, D, C, F, F, D, B. But if you did it in the alto clef, you might be thinking, oh dear, I've got to think about every single note. Well, if this is B in the treble clef, it's C in the alto clef, isn't it? Okay, just going up one. If that's D in the treble clef, it's E. If that's C in the treble clef, it's D. If that's F in the treble clef, it's G. So's that, an octave higher. If this is D in the treble clef, it's E. If this is B in the treble clef, it's C. Do you see how quickly you can do this? If you can think in treble clef, well, just go for it. Think of it in treble clef. Go up one note. You've got the letter name immediately, but don't forget then to think of that down an octave, and it gives you a quick way of doing it. So you can read the alto clef, or you can just think, okay, I'm going up one, down an octave. So the first note is C, looks like B, up one, C, down the octave. That looks like D, so it must be E. Looks like C, so it must be D. Looks like F, so it must be G. Looks like F, so it must be G. Looks like D, so it must be E. Looks like B, so it must be C. It's just a quick way of reading notes in the alto clef, or thinking what notes in the alto clef need to be if you're composing. Otherwise, the thing that makes this a real pain is when people are thinking, well, I know this note's middle C, but I don't know what the other notes are. So when you want to find this note, you've got to think, well, you know, that's C, so that's D, that's E, that's F, that's G. I mean, you can do that. It will get you there. But this is just a shortcut method to reading and writing in the alto C clef. And actually, it's funny how it goes, because I can remember sort of starting to read the alto clef like that many years ago. And now I just kind of think in the alto clef. So I think it's a way of just getting you to the point where you can just read it and don't have to go through all that. But it's just a way of making friends with it and not being frightened about the alto clef. So very practical session there on what's the alto clef, who uses it, how can you read it pretty quickly, or how can you write notes in the alto clef pretty quickly. So I hope that's a very helpful, practical video. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, let me invite you to the Music Matters website, www.mmcourses.co.uk. Lots of things on offer there. There are courses, there's an opportunity to join our Maestros program, there's merch there, there's all sorts of things. But if you're sort of thinking, yeah, you know, alto clef kind of reminds me that I really ought to brush up on my theory or learn a bit more theory, because that would be useful. Well, click on courses and then have a look at our theory courses. We've got a theory course for every single grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've also got bundles, so you can have 1 to 5 as a bundle, or you can have 1 to 8 as a bundle. And 1 to 5 is covering all the nuts and bolts of musical language, all the stuff you just need to know. If you're a musician, if you play music, if you compose music, whatever, that will really empower you as a musician. If you want to go on a bit further, well, you can go all the way up to 8 and you can really learn some stuff about harmony, about chords, different ways of looking at music and analysing it, doing quite a bit of compositional skill stuff. That will really help build on what's there in grades 1 to 5. Anyway, it's there, lots of other courses as well, but have a look at that and see if that's something that you're going to find helpful.